Skull and Bones, Star Wars Outlaws, and Assassin's Creed Shadows. Needless to say, Ubisoft's chances of survival are less than Joe Biden's.
Things at Ubisoft are far worse than I ever could have imagined. After my last video chronicling the rise and fall of Ubisoft, I had both current and former Ubisoft developers reach out for comment. Today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about the issues that the studios face today from the perspective of their own employees.
So, are these women who reached out to comment? Is the complaint why Ubisoft is dying is going to be, oh, a 99.9% female-led company is dying because there was not enough safe spaces, or quiet corners, or yoga mats? Who knows?
Everything from Me Too movement allegations to agenda-driven content. I want to contrast the comments made in these interviews with what we've seen from Assassin's Creed Shadows and Star Wars Outlaws. This company has a deep-rooted leadership issue, going as far to think that the vast majority of online criticism is just a toxic minority of gamers.
Good luck with that thinking, Ubisoft. Nice attempt to try and satisfy the shareholders and quell the fire. It's not going to work, though.
Company and its leadership think that they are on the righteous path. Little do they know, it's a dead end. Assassin's Creed Shadows has been steeped in controversy and criticism since its initial reveal. Online discourse surrounding the game has been almost entirely negative, with long-term...
It has been completely entirely negative. The positivity about Assassin's Creed is as genuine as, you making it to 25. It is what it is.
Fans of the franchise, general audience, and Japanese audiences up in arms over the creative liberties that Ubisoft has taken with the depiction of Yasuke, the fabled Black Samurai, and feudal Japan. Japanese creators, as well as just random bystanders, have taken to Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube and Reddit, voicing their concerns offended by the game's...
So, is the twink an actual boy or girl? Does anyone know? Because I'm not sure.
...representation of their history and culture. Inaccuracies like using Chinese architecture instead of Japanese, the legitimacy and relevance of the game's protagonist, Yasuke, and even going as far as stealing a flag and imagery from the Seki...
By the way, I absolutely love this trailer. It is so amazing. Look at this. Look at this. Pay attention.
Like using Chinese architecture instead of Japanese, the legitimacy...
So, the twink rushes in and shoves this dude right here.
Relevance.
And is knocked off his feet because physics and gender, non-equality and reasons, right?
The game's
and after that, he instantaneously just proceeds to wipe the floor with everyone because reasons. Make it make sense.
Protagonist Yasuke, and even going as far as stealing a flag and imagery from the Sekihara Teppotai, a historical reenactment group where the company had to formally apologize for not asking for permission to use their materials. Ubisoft's adventure into Japanese history has been a complete disaster, and it's only going to get worse. On September 11th of 2024, an article was penned by the New York Times titled "The Fight Over a Black Samurai in Assassin's Creed." The writer, Zachary Small, misrepresents the controversy and player concerns as merely those of a toxic minority of angry Western gamers, and the entire time he fixates on the...
I absolutely love how desperate journalists are to cling to their fading power that they no longer even really truly have. And they're just saying, oh, no, listen, we're the ones who represent the majority of people. We say truth to power. Not these people. No. They're just a loud minority. Okay, let's see how this works.
Race of Yasuke and not the broader implications at play in Ubisoft's mishandling and the frank disrespect for Japanese culture and history. This article was a collaboration between Ubisoft and the New York Times.
What do you mean blatant disrespect of Japanese history, okay? Japan is too white. We all know that. So, a little bit of diversity never destroyed anyone except Rome. And I'm pretty sure like a lot of other places historically. Currently America and whatnot. But that's fine. Don't worry about it.
In an attempt to redirect the discussions surrounding Assassin's Creed Shadows and minimize the feedback. The writer spoke with Kazuma Hashimoto, a consultant and translator for the games industry, later to be found out to be an employee of Sweet Baby Incorporated that did consultant work for Ubisoft. But Hashimoto claimed that It was people in the West who were upset with seeing Yasuke as a samurai, and that many of the online negative comments were written in Japanese appeared to be roughly translated from English, effectively hand-waving the increasingly loud and valid concerns of the Japanese, asserting that it's all made-up outrage. Nothing more than the gamers' war against DEI or inclusivity in video games. I find it all too poetic.
That's a bot bird fighting quote, okay?
And predictable for a AAA publisher to brush off player concerns and use their connections in the media to try to steer public discourse and sentiment into a favorable direction. All of these claims made by the New York Times, as well as other writers, are patently false. You can see the criticisms of Ubisoft's recent releases and the future release in Assassin's Creed Shadows everywhere. It's impossible to ignore. Videos and promotional material ratioed by dislikes and comments in mass numbers. Videos like mine and many others reaching widespread appeal because we have that many people that agree or share similar opinions. With that said,
a little bit of self-flattery, but barely acceptable, but okay.
I couldn't imagine that it was possible for anyone to ignore this level of feedback, and Ubisoft has to be seeing it. So I spoke with a few developers from Ubisoft to shed some light on these issues. I started off by asking how Ubisoft internalizes and discusses general criticism from players and the rest of the industry, whether that's its repetitive design, agenda-driven content, or predictable games. They responded saying, at a high level, they rarely talk about it. At a project level, they brush it off as toxic gamer talk. As Asmongold correctly pointed out in a video of his, Ubisoft is filled with toxic positivity that prevents any growth. I then asked, what about the
Most of these places are filled with toxic positivity. Everyone knows it. This is what happens when an ideology takes over, and it starts at probably the HR department, because these insane lunatics start from there. They have a degree in gender studies and whatnot. Where are they gonna go? Well, the HR department. And in the HR department, they're gonna slowly start hiring more people that think like them. And in the end, it's just gonna be people that think like them. And, well, the current state of Hollywood, where everyone's checking that they are trans, non-binary, black, indigenous, and everything except white, because if they do, they're gonna get fired for not being diverse enough. Everyone knows this is happening. The rot is real.
Japanese community's backlash over Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's obvious that they haven't done their research, and even the smallest details are going to be noticed by a culture that's as proud as the Japanese. They responded by saying that the criticisms haven't been talked about, and they've only issued demands that we mustn't engage with discussion on that topic publicly. Meaning everything that we've said up until this point, all the criticism that we've had over the years for Ubisoft games, even that of the industry itself, has fallen on deaf ears. I don't know if it's sad or if it's somewhat, it's
pathetic. That's what it is. It's just pathetic.
Cathartic to have that validated. I mean, it's the main complaint that the vast majority of gamers have had over the years, which is that these companies aren't listening to us. And in this case, I have developers that are telling me, yeah, they're not listening to you. One, because they don't want to take criticism, and two, because they don't know how to differentiate bad from good criticism. I think this is my patented catchphrase by now, but...
What do you mean? If you're Ubisoft, there's no such thing as good criticism, because any criticism of their spectacular work is just by the masses of ignorance. And they're obviously not going to accept that, because that's not valid criticism. When you live on a horse that high, everything is invalid criticism, because they simply don't understand the brilliance and the future of whatever the fuck you're doing.
When you have this much negative discourse surrounding your games, you need to be listening, regardless of whether or not it's good or bad feedback in your eyes, regardless if you align with these people's political beliefs or social political beliefs or whatever it might be.
No, that's stupid. They don't care about making good games. They don't care about running a business. They're activists. Why? The only reason they're all in Ubisoft is to be activists. Why the hell would they listen to someone who's saying your activism is bad? Then what's the point of them even being there if they can't be activists? They never cared about anything else to begin with.
None of that matters. When you have your games on fire as much as Ubisoft games have been lately, you need to put those fires out somehow. And the only way that you can do that is by listening to them. and implementing whatever feedback you possibly can into your games to make them better.
Yeah, that's probably a completely stupid idea, not gonna lie. Most people's feedback is kind of fucking garbage, to be completely honest, almost all the time. But when you have enough people saying that something in a vague direction of X is bad, it probably is bad. But, listen, taking in the feedback of players is how we got World of Warcraft's, what's it called? Jailer expansion, Shadow some I forgot its name, but that's how you get that. That's what happens when you listen too much to feedback of the masses.
Regardless, the other thing is,
this is why Valorant currently is turning into a safe space for LARPing 40s and degenerates. Okay, soon in Valorant you're not going to be able to enter in a ranked match and not be banned because you refuse to role play as a kitten. Okay, that's what's gonna happen, and that's what's gonna happen also with Riot. This is always what happens with these companies that have some kind of oh my god, me too controversies. They want to get out of the hot press because it's bad for the shareholders, and they get mad. So they do everything they can to actually change and say that they are changing, and when they actually change, this is the outcome. Ubisoft is the outcome.
I'm sorry. I am sick of, I am disgusted by the blatant, feigned virtue over how much they care about Japanese culture and history. I'm sorry. You are bastardizing.
I'm pretty sure they never said that they cared about Japanese history, to be honest.
Japanese culture and history for profit. That's what you're trying to do here. You're not trying to make a history piece. We know that. It's very loosely based on Japanese culture and history. Look at you guys. You put out a Torigate figurine, a half Torigate figurine with your characters on it.
Hey, at least Yasuke wasn't sitting on top.
Without knowing the cultural relevance of the half Torigate after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, do you have any idea what that means to these people?
To be fair, it was just after Nagasaki. They both, whatever.
What's wrong with you? At the end of the day, it all comes down to leadership. When you look at Ubisoft's messaging, the lackluster delivery of titles like XDefiant and Star Wars Outlaws, the inaccuracies and screw-ups with Assassin's Creed Shadows, you see a developer that has no clear plan or vision for what players want, what good games look.
It's not like they're looking at what players want, so I guess the lack of vision is self-explanatory.
Or how to even do their job. I took the time to talk.
Ah, look at that. Welcome to the rice fields. The black god of Japan just strutting along the rice fields and looking at his slaves. Mwah. Hey, that's probably the only historic fact they got right about African people.
Talk to the Ubisoft developers about workplace culture, about the initiative that they've taken for diversity hiring, and what happens behind the scenes at Ubisoft. And it's wild to see how accurate some of the assumptions.
I love how, he just almost trampled civilians, and they're like, oh, what is happening here? Oh, it's Yasuke, our god.
that have been made by myself and others. Now, continuing my conversation with one of the developers, I wanted to find more about the workplace structure and management. And seeing as though the company has had initiatives that have been put in place to make the workplace a little bit more diverse, I asked.
Yasuke's probably going to have a mission where he gets to do an abortion on a child here, because obviously.
What benefits have you seen? Is there more diversity in thought, or is it creating a more one-sided environment? They said that so far the initiative hasn't had any impact on the team that I'm a part of. However, it's clear that some topics are taboo. What happened is now that people end up in a meeting with HR for trivial stuff, not adding smiley faces to a message or adding an exclamation point at the end of a message because some people are reporting it for harassment. One of the things that...
Wait, what? Adding an exclamation point? The fuck is an exclamation point? It's called an exclamation mark.
To a message or adding an exclamation point at the end of a message because some people are reporting it for harassment. One of the things that wasn't in your video is that Ubisoft had some controversy during the Me Too period, letting go of a manager in high positions, and some left on their own because they knew they'd be discovered. I then asked, what was the impact of this in the workplace? They responded by saying the editorial direction and overall mindset shifted from the boys club to safe content, reaching for plain.
Yep. Remember how I said back in the Blizzard scandal days that this is gonna happen? Because it does. The pendulum swings back with force.
Characters like Kay in Star Wars is a perfect example of
Also, I'm just gonna say, the boys club fucking rocks. Shut the fuck up.
this. The idea to have beautiful characters such as Baldur's Gate or Uncharted is met with distrust. The developer shared sentiments saying that safe content
Distrust or disdain.
also leads to limited opportunities on the gameplay side. Even for Star Wars, we had to work with Disney, which would have shut down most attempts at depicting a true criminal underworld with cruelty and drama. When you put this developer's perspective in line with the recent failures and controversies at Ubisoft or any AAA developer at this point, it all makes sense. An overcorrection in sensitivity brought on by the boys club days that many studios experienced during their early years. As such, many games today lack the teeth and grit that players crave because those things are seen as problematic or unsafe to make in the workplace. Don't use emojis or exclamation points. You could offend someone. Holy shit. How soft have we gotten? It reminds me of the time where the Helldivers 2 community manager went on a ban spree on their Discord because players were using a throw-up emoji on furry art that was posted in their Discord. Sometimes
Oh, that's impressive.
people need to be offended.
She hit the air. I can't. Star Wars Outlaws is just a joy.
While I'm going to try to resist the pull yourself up by your bootstraps tirade, friction on some levels is necessary in life. Now, that doesn't mean that people should be allowed to openly harass others, but there are major issues that arise when you have emojis that can get you fired. This overreaction and overcorrection leads to a workplace that is actively hostile towards freedom of thought, expression, and criticism. As one of the interviewees mentioned earlier, they noticed a culture of toxic positivity. From my perspective, toxic positivity is fake people saying fake things, and in the case of Ubisoft, making fake products. Nobody wants to live their entire life being terrified that someone is going to misunderstand them. And when you're...
But that's what they go for. That's what they want. Because, man, if everyone's a victim, you just need to be the best victim. That's it. Also, I'm indigenous. You can't say anything bad about me. Cherokee Indian, in fact. A black Cherokee Indian. No. A East Pacific Asian black Cherokee Indian. What up? I'm literally immortal. I am fucking untouchable.
At a studio like Ubisoft, and you're not even allowed to make characters attractive, otherwise it might upset people at the studio, you have a problem. This culture of fear and forced uniformity stifles creativity and innovation. It's no wonder that Ubisoft is struggling to produce anything of real substance when their own developers are...
Bro, you look at this gameplay. What the... Dude, my god.
Walking on eggshells, more worried about HR complaints than creating groundbreaking games.
I like that the little baby Yoda shit is immune to explosives. That's very cool.
How can you make bold, impactful content when every idea is scrutinized for being too risky, too offensive, or too unsafe? It's a workplace where mediocrity is rewarded and where pushing boundaries, the very things that games are supposed to do, is seen as a liability. This workplace culture, this overreaction and overcorrection has infected just about every single industry that's out there. I worked in construction for 7 years up until last December, and the company that I worked for was more afraid of HR issues than they were of injuries. We worked with hydrogen sulfide and hydrogen cyanide, gases that, if released, could kill half of a city.
Okay, and?
You know, we've discussed modern audiences, the myth...
Okay, that doesn't matter. Listen, the pronouns matter. Did you use them properly or not?
Mythical, magical modern audiences and soft modern games. We found the audience. It's the people that are running these companies nowadays. You have folks that are walking around on eggshells, afraid to say anything. Anecdotal, but just like a few weeks ago or a month ago or so, I remember I was live streaming, and instinctively I said something was retarded. I'm a millennial. We all grew up saying it. It's a product of my upbringing.
Oh no, am I supposed to not say retarded now? Yeah, I'm not gonna stop. Shut up.
Say what you will. I didn't say it consciously. It just came out. And one of my chatters pops up and says, "How often do you say that word?"
I would just ban the person like that.
I banned the fuck out of them. Get the fuck out of here with that. Are you kidding me? People that are out there that are waiting, prepared to be offended. I'm sick of it. You cannot have workplaces that are out there where every single thing that you say, you have to watch every word that comes out of your mouth. Otherwise, it could be your livelihood. And I'm not saying that you can walk around saying anything. That's not what this is. Everybody knows.
It should be like that, though. Don't see.
I think that's the most frustrating part when you have these kind of conversations, is that you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes, and I refuse to stop that. People should be able to say whatever the hell they please.
But the intellectual dishonesty around this kind of thing is just, it's fucking mind-boggling. We have workplace environments that actively work against any type of creative or constructive criticism. That's how you get games like this. This is how games and products are being ruined over time, is because nobody's allowed to criticize things properly. You have people in the workplace that are like, I don't think that these characters are going to be received well by the fans, but they're not allowed to say anything about it. They can't say it's not hot enough. It's not masculine enough. They can't say that because it's problematic to say so.
I mean, if you let your company fall this far, well, what do I care? It's like, you deserve it.
Tame and safe are the antonyms of exciting and daring. Baldur's Gate 3 was exciting and daring. Star Wars Outlaws, tame and safe. Whether it's their poor job at representing...
No, actually, Star Wars Outlaws was shit.
...in Japan or the trailers of Assassin's Creed, there are clearly levels of incompetence.
Star Wars Outlaws failed to do... Seriously, this guy didn't know this? Star Wars Outlaws didn't even do properly the parts that can be plain and safe. They're just bad. It's not about being plain and safe. You can make a wonderful game that's absolutely amazing while being plain and safe. There's no problem with that. It's easy, in fact. But it's just the fact that Ubisoft doesn't have a single shred of talent.
Competency at work. As many players have pointed out in the game trailers, the promotional materials that are meant to sell the game, you can see frame rate issues, texture issues, poor collision detection, weapons clipping through characters, and more. Controversies aside, this game doesn't look like it's ready for launch, and in fact, its developer just recently came out and canceled their appearance at Tokyo Game Show and announced that the game would be delayed until February. Along with the delay, Ubisoft CEO recently issued a memo to their employees that ended up getting leaked publicly, and it showcases just how out of touch this company is with their players. Rather than acknowledging their real missteps, they're clinging to critic scores, pointing out Star Wars Outlaws had a solid 76 on Metacritic. Oh, I didn't know that you were trying to sell
a solid 76. Wow.
the game to game reviewers. That makes a lot of sense, seeing as though that you're completely ignoring player feedback that clearly shows that your game is hovering in mediocrity. Even worse, they believe that Black Friday sales are somehow going to magically turn things around, not realizing that no amount of discounting will make up for a product that fundamentally misses the mark and nobody's interested in. The memo reads more like a corporate spin than a genuine reflection of failure. No mention of the controversies or deeper issues that are plaguing the company. They talk about how all players want are highly polished games on launch day, when the truth is players are craving meaningful, risk-taking, authentic content, things that Ubisoft hasn't seen in decades. Even in their own memo to their own employees, they can't speak frankly about their mistakes. This sanitized messaging shows just how deeply disconnected the company is from the people that it should be listening to, the players. Interested in the perspective of the employees who received this memo, I had a few questions on their thoughts of the messaging and the leadership of the company. I asked, what has been the message from management to the staff about Ubisoft's declining sales? What do they believe is the reason behind it?
I'm pretty sure they're just gonna ignore it, because the market's shrinking, and stuff, most likely. Oh, other good games are coming out.
They responded, the fun fact is they don't talk much about it. They mainly focus on the fact that they reached their financial objectives, which are mainly achieved through casual player sales, not the vocal gamer minority that are sick of what you described in your video. Also, something to know is that through the years, the number of management floors has increased to ridiculous amounts, so communication is often blurry unless they come directly from HQ, and even then, it's almost entirely corpo bullshit that isn't useful in the end. I asked another employee to verify the increase in management at the company, fearing that
This person who wrote this is, by the way, fucking trash at their job. I can literally fucking tell. I can tell so bad that this person is a talentless loser. Okay, well, let's look at this. Also, something known is that throughout the years, the number of management floors has increased ridiculous amounts. Okay, good, but as a normal employee, you should literally not give a fuck about this because it doesn't actually affect you that much. So communication is often blurry unless they come directly from HQ. How does it help that something comes from HQ? Typically, every email that comes from HQ, I have almost always ignored because the emails that get sent to the average person, they don't matter. What matters is what HQ tells you personally and what the higher ups tell you personally. That's what matters. Anything other than that is just fluff. And even then, it's almost entirely corporal bullshit. Yes, exactly. That's what it's supposed to mean. Listen, if you're at a giant company that's like 4,000 people large, you don't have to worry about any of this. If you're competent, you understand what you need to do because HQ's never gonna care about, oh, is the looting system good? They don't even know that. They don't know about the story. They don't know about everything, okay? You can do your job completely ignoring upper management, lower management, and, well, pretty much the only person you can't ignore is your boss, and you can especially ignore HQ. Listen, if you're good at your job, you're never going to struggle with this. There's no such thing as bad communication if you're competent at your job, because you're always going to be in the fucking loop of whatever's happening, because you're competent and good. Only an absolute low talentless loser could ever write a sentence like this and think it's good.
Useful in the end. I asked another employee to verify the increase in management at the company, fearing that this is likely one of the biggest issues that's facing the company. Seeing that lack of clear and creative vision, they painted a picture of a company that's not only overrun with management, but that's passively aggressive about removing higher paid and talented employees while slotting in underskilled and unexperienced management at a cheaper rate. They claim that Ubisoft as an employer shows little regard for their developers. What happened?
Obviously they don't. What kind of idiot you need to be to believe that the company you work for, especially if it's a giant, is gonna care about its employees? How stupid do you need to be to garble that slop?
What happens in practice is that they essentially push out senior engineers, promoting junior engineers to senior roles after just a few years of experience, oftentimes with experience in just one engine. Meanwhile, experienced developers with far broader skill sets are being overlooked. This constant cycle of
yeah, because they didn't play the game right. How many times have I talked about this? If you want to get a raise in your shitty job, you don't need to be the best at their job. I have talked about all of this so extensively. You don't want to promote the most skilled person. It just doesn't make sense to promote the most skilled people to a new position. It's stupid. It's counterproductive. Listen, okay, let me paint the picture right here. You as an employee need to be competent at your job, but you never need to give it your 100%. I barely gave it my 50%, and I was always hailed as one of the most competent and smart people at the government sector of 4,000 employees, because I just, every time I did something, I low-key made it seem like it's extremely hard, even though I'm actually just reading a book on the computer. And when someone comes near, I just pop Excel up and pretend that I'm actually thinking about numbers. Because, well, when your job is numbers, it's not like anyone's gonna understand if you're working or not. That's my favorite part. Like, hell is anyone's gonna understand? If there is a job that you are told to do in 3 days because it's supposed to take time, and you can do it in 1 hour, you're a fucking idiot if you complete that task in an hour and go to your boss and say, it was easy. No, you take a day or whatever. If it's a super rush, you pretend that it's really hard, and then you do it. Oh, boss, I made it in time. I did it. I put in my all. And they're like, oh my god, this is so amazing. It's not how good you are, it's how good you sell yourself. That's what matters to be recognized in a company. Because your boss probably knows the bare basics of whatever the fuck you're doing. And they always do to an extent, okay? There's a bunch of people who I have heard these stories so goddamn fucking often. By the way, it just boggles my mind. It's also one of my favorite comedy skits of all time. That the people are this stupid. So new management comes in. New manager comes down and looks what everyone's doing, and he just pretends that he has no fucking clue what you're doing. He comes up to you and starts asking super simple questions. And if the employee thinks that the manager is stupid and gives them BS answers or whatnot, they get fired. And so many people are surprised when the new manager comes in, because the new manager's first thing they're gonna do is properly clean fucking house, one by one, no questions asked. That's probably the first thing that they're gonna do. They go up, they look at it, and if someone's like, oh, my manager's stupid, they don't understand what I'm doing. But the manager understands. Maybe they can't do it to the perfect fidelity that an actual person who does it every day can, but they understand that you're bullshitting. There's so many people with stories like this. Oh, my manager's an idiot. Surprise, surprise, after a month they get fired. I wonder fucking how. I wonder why. How did that happen? Maybe the manager wasn't actually as stupid as you thought, and you're the idiot. But it just works like, because you can't fire everyone instantaneously. That's also a thing to remember. But yeah, these things they're absolutely they're absolutely insane. Oh man. And back to the point of why you never actually promote someone who's actually really, really good at their job is, well, you can. You can get promoted if you're really good with that job, but that means you also have people skills. And the people at the top like you, so they want to keep you next to them because they like you. That's very important. But, okay, let me explain in the most easy way possible. You have Bobby Bobster. He is amazing at his job. He can do what three people in his position, he can do in a day what three people in his position can do in a week. Okay? That's how good he is. Now, there is a new, someone left, or there's a new role or whatever, and Bobby Bobster is qualified to actually maybe get the promotion. Now, what are you gonna do? Promote the guy who currently is killing it, doing the work of four people while getting paid as one person, and you promote him to a management position where he potentially is not that great at, potentially could fail, or whatever. Or do you get someone completely new for the position, or someone who has the skills that are actually good in that new position and who's not a huge loss for the already existing team because, well, reasons. Yeah, Bobby Bobster is never getting a fucking promotion at this rate. Now, obviously, these promotions do happen and whatnot, but there are a lot of situations where being the best at something is really bad.
Broader skill sets are being overlooked. This constant cycle of turnover with inexperienced leaders leads to noticeable drops in quality, with bugs appearing in their games. The passionate, dedicated developers leave, while those who are just going through the motions stay behind. This doesn't just affect the technical quality of their games, but also impacts the design and creativity. For instance, you'll find designers working on FPS mechanics who have never played an FPS game before, or engineers who don't understand how the mechanics they're building are supposed to feel. There's a lack of passion and skill across the board, and the results are obvious.
Sounds like your typical mentorship problem, and that's pretty much it. This can all be easily fixed with some kind of mentorship thing where people actually get taught what they're supposed to do in these roles. But it seemingly that doesn't happen. Why? Because everyone's a talentless loser at Ubisoft.
Yes. That line about designers working on FPS games and leading FPS projects struck a chord with me. Not long ago, Ubisoft released XDefiant, a military shooter that was meant to compete with the likes of Call of Duty. However, since the game's release, they've lost the vast majority of their player base, with Ubisoft claiming that the game isn't dying, despite it reportedly losing 94% of its players on Xbox. Why is XDefiant ran into so many issues? Netcode, hit registration, and general shooter gameplay issues. Common problems that are normally ironed out well before a game ever hits the market, especially a shooter. It's core to the gameplay. If you're playing a live service shooter, all you do is shoot. That's the gameplay. But when the shooting doesn't work, you don't have a game. Ubisoft's leadership is completely disconnected from the reality of game development and player expectations. The problem
Ubisoft's leadership is not actually responsible for that. That's the irony of it. Anyway, I'm feeling like I'm done. That was Legendary Drops. Bye-bye.